your city. It's your man, Big Pat, the voice of your Charlotte Hornets, and you're listening to the All Hornets Podcast Network, presented by Sports Illustrated.
It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year,
Panarin!
part of the past. The celebrations, forgotten. The history,
Vegas Golden Knights!
history. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Hello, you are listening and watching to Inside the Hive on the All Hornets Podcast Network. A breaking news edition. Steve Clifford is out as head coach. The news broke around half an hour ago. Sam Dracula of the Sam Dracula YouTube channel has joined me. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm still ill, as people can probably hear on my voice, but I had to drop on for this emergency show for Steve Clifford. I'm hoping you can help carry me through here. I guess let's straight to you first up here, Sam. I mean, are you surprised that Steve Clifford is out as head coach of the Charlotte Hornets?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was very weird. Everything's been weird about the Hornets on the floor and off the floor, right? Last 12 months. But when you go back to MJ selling his portion of the team, right? It was weird for a new owner. You have to have new owners and not change everybody else. It was really took until January this year where we see, them announcing the arena renovations, doubling down on the practice facility, right? They changed the roster, moving on from Terry, PJ, and Gordon, right? They said they moved Mitch Kupchak aside. So it just seemed like the next step, like the next progression is the head coach spot. And especially considering that Clifford had a team option next year. So this guy, it never seemed like a permanent hire anyway, considering he wasn't in that initial post-Borrego hiring run. And now that we have new owners, a new front office in place, just a different head coach just seemed like a logical step.
I agree. I always thought it was going to happen. There was this weird kind of slight pushback that Steve Clifford could stay around another year because of his link with Jeff Peterson when he got hired, because they had a relationship in Brooklyn. And actually in Adrian Wojnarowski's report at ESPN.com, it said ownership and Jeff Peterson were open to bringing him back as coach next season, but Clifford decided he wasn't prepared to commit to another year-round grind of head coaching for next season. But he is staying on as an external advisor. So this is not we're shuffling Steve Clifford out the back door, we're firing him, we're not happy. It seems like things are in a pretty good place with Clifford and the new owners. And again, it talked about Clifford wanting them to have the opportunity to compete for the top young coaches available in the marketplace. So a very amicable split second time round for Steve Clifford. And I asked the question back on my Twitter account back in November, being like, what if both Mitch Kupchak and Steve Clifford stayed on as external advisors? Yeah. And the backlash I got was huge. Everyone slated the idea, hated everything. Why would you keep these two losers around? And here we are 6 months later, and we're basically in that situation where both are being stayed on. So a very interesting situation here. Are you surprised about this external advisor role?
No, because he was doing that in Brooklyn to a certain degree, right? He was a
Yeah.
consultant over there. And like when you watch Clifford for the last 2 years, right? He looked like a guy who doesn't need to be doing this. Like he has a real NBA resume. Right? He doesn't have the playoff and NBA rings like success, but he's a well-respected head coach in the NBA. Right? You watch him, and when the Hornets play other teams, you see him go up to the star players around the league. Like they respect this guy. He's a certified NBA brain, and keeping him around in a different capacity is such a positive move, especially when you're redoing the front office. The front office now isn't what it will be in a couple of months. Like they're in the process of adding talent to the front office, and keeping Clifford in the mix is a very strong place to be. Same with Kupchak, right? What he did with the Lakers, I think is Hall of Fame worthy, and keeping that knowledge, that brain around is only a good thing.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing with this is now for the players playing the rest of the season, they still have a reason to play. This isn't a guy who's not going to be here next year. This is a guy who clearly has the ear of the VP of basketball operations, the ear of the owners. They listen to him. He's going to be here next year. So this isn't that everyone can now mail it in.
Exactly. And when it comes to so the Hornets have some personnel decisions to make this summer, right? Yep. Who better to contribute to those discussions than the guy who's been coaching these guys for 2 years, right? He's been with these guys day in and day out in meetings, on the floor, on the plane, all this stuff. And so, yeah, having Clifford's input in who these guys really are in a front office role, I think is a real ideal window into what we have currently as the new guys look to figure out what new guys need to come in.
Yeah, and I mean, he is also the guy who thought Frank Ntilikina was the team's backup point guard, which might give some concern about maybe his personnel choices. But look, we've seen it this year. I'm going to miss the Steve Clifford monologues on the issues of youth basketball, the issues of draft picks, young players today. We've been treated to a lot over the last 2 seasons, and I do think he is clearly an intelligent basketball mind. You hear other coaches talk about Steve Clifford. He's extremely well respected around the league, irrelevant of what his record is. I've got it on the screen right now. He was 38 and 112 so far. That might end up being 38 and 120 by the time this season's done, right? Mm-hmm. But that is, he never had the team that he actually signed up to coach once. He signed the contract. As Bridges went out and got himself in trouble within like 48 hours. Mm-hmm. And then that season, not only was he not there, but LaMelo Ball is injured. Gordon Hayward is injured. Terry Rozier missed time with a groin strain. He never, ever had the team that he wanted. And I feel really sorry for someone, having that head coach opportunity, even though he was the stopgap. It like he said it when his introductory press conference. This is the most talented team I've ever coached. And he took the Hornets to the playoffs. He took Orlando to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And this team was not at that level.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, what? I was a bit weird from Clifford, in my opinion. And I'm going to miss him yelling at Nick Richards to set screens next year. Because it's 2 years. How can you not set a screen prop? Anyway, sorry. Clifford is, like you mentioned, is a real NBA head coach. And so keeping that brain around is a positive thing. I'm really happy with how everything is transformed, because now that people for instance, let's go back to like last year, for instance. Like a lot of people calling for Clifford to be fired when things were going poorly. Mm-hmm. What head coach are you going to bring into that situation last year? That was not a good job last year. Right now, it's subjective, but it's a much better job objectively. How good of a job it is subjective, but it's definitely a better situation now than it was last year, considering the cap flexibility they have and the future picks they have to play with. So Kupchak, as his final act as GM, moving on from Rozier, PJ, and Gordon, collecting those picks, he really set this franchise up to being an attractive place for new front office members and new coaching members. And now I'm just really curious. Like, there was a report when Kenny Atkinson backed out on the Hornets last year or 2 years ago. There was a report that Atkinson wasn't happy. He said he put out a statement why he didn't come. There's also a report that said the Hornets weren't willing to spend on a new coaching staff.
That's true. I can tell you categorically that is true. He was not able to assemble the staff that he wanted to be able to assemble, and he did not have full control over that, and he did not like that. And that was just one issue of many of the former ownership with limited funds.
So that's my thing. Like, so the new coach, new owners, we're gonna redo this coaching staff. Because I don't want to know. I don't know who's gonna be the new head coach, but my dream candidate is Mike Budenholzer. From the resume point of view, and also just from a coaching staff point of view, his coaching tree is crazy. Right, Quinn Snyder, our boy Kenny Atkinson, right, Taylor Jenkins, Darvin Ham. Like, he has a history of assembling incredible staff, and to bring it potentially to hopefully bring in a coach that can help the on-court product and recruit top-tier assistant talent, I think should be the aim.
And I've just got this through now. If you're watching live, this is hot off the press. The Hornets are hosting a media availability today at 4 p.m. Eastern with head coach Steve Clifford and VP of basketball ops Jeff Peterson. So we're going to be hearing from Steve and Jeff later today. That is hot off the press as of literally 30 seconds ago. You talked about it being a more attractive job. I agree with you. Maybe not more so because of the draft picks, because I don't know how much like a new coach cares about the 2028, protected first, but just they have ownership group, which are like new practice facility on its way, arena renovations, spending, like just having a financial level footing with the rest of the league. I think that is the biggest thing. And the other thing is, look at the two of the jobs available: the Brooklyn Nets, the Washington Wizards. This is the best job on the market right now. Now, another job will come up once the season is done. Whoever flames out the playoffs, that'll probably happen, but this is, I think, pretty clearly the best job available right now in the market. And the report has that the Wizards are highly likely to actually hire their current interim as their head coach. So that might be, again, one less element of competition. And maybe that's why Steve Clifford said this is the time to move aside now. Move aside now because you've got the best market out here when you're trying to get some of these other coaches.
Yeah, and that's the same approach they did with Kupchak, right? He stepped down before the season ended to allow the owners to have time to find their guy to step in his place.
Absolutely. So, should we move on to some first reported candidates of who the next head coach could be? So, Adrian Wojnarowski has reported 4 names that are expected to be considered. Sacramento's Jordi Fernandez, Boston's Charles Lee, Miami's Chris Quinn, and Phoenix's Kevin Young. Any of those you want to start with? Anyone that kind of jumps out to you?
So Sacramento, Jordi Fernandez jumps out to me. Again, I'm going off the organization instead of the name because it's hard to place credit. You know what I mean? Sacramento is such an envious, as a Hornets fan, it's such an envious program because they were the bottom of the West for a long time. No one wanted to go there, right? They were making all these terrible draft selections, and they fixed it. They became an exciting team, probably one-dimensional team, but they became a playoff team. And that is a team or a franchise that I'd like the Hornets to emulate wherever possible. And a good way of copying someone else's homework is to copy someone else's homework and bring somebody in that has done it over there. But yeah, like from Boston, Miami, Phoenix, those are all like well-run organizations at the moment. I don't know about Phoenix as much, but those other ones especially, I think could be something special. But I'm curious to see, who these others are. Woj throwing out others is like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah,
and Woj wrote in his piece they're expecting to look for another young head coach. He didn't have to write young. His head went, I need to write young here because he knows something, right? And look at who this new front office is. Jeff Peterson, one of the youngest, if not the youngest, head of basketball operations in the NBA. Like, do you think if you're Jeff Peterson, you really want to hire someone who's like 70 years old? You're kind of like senior.
Yeah, true.
Like that dynamic can be difficult. And I get the sense this is going to be a young coaching staff and front office. Not to say that you need experience in this league. You absolutely do. And even if there's a young head coach, I imagine there would be experience there with it. But Charles Lee is the name that I think I have receipts of this that I can show people. I've been talking about Charles Lee for 4 months.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. I don't discuss that publicly when a coach is still in place. A bit disrespectful to be talking about who's going to replace your job when you're still doing your job. But I've been having conversations behind the scenes with people, and he was spent time in Atlanta with the new Hornets owners and with Jeff Peterson. He then went to Milwaukee, won a championship there with Bud as his top assistant, then got poached by Boston to become the top assistant on this Celtics team. Everywhere he has gone, they've had massive success, both in Atlanta when they had that run, Milwaukee, Boston. He has links to the new owners. He is young. He's an ex-point guard. He is known to be a defensive first guy. There are so many things that I think point in Charles Lee's direction. I would be pretty surprised if he wasn't one of the guys. You mentioned Budenholzer. I agree. The top candidate there is out there, right? For any coaching position, probably. Yeah. And he has links to this new ownership group and to Jeff Peterson. The question is, will a new position come up which is better than Charlotte, which Budenholzer will be eligible for? The answer is yes. Like, there will be another opportunity in the next 18 months. Yeah. And does he want to hitch the next 4 years to the Charlotte Hornets right now? If he does, sign me up.
You know, it's gonna it'd have to be a Monty Williams level contract to get him here. So that's where we'll know how serious these owners are, you know?
And you're absolutely right. If they went out and secured Mike Budenholzer, that would send a earthquake throughout the NBA and the organization that, like, they are not messing around. Yeah. Like, they are spending not just average NBA money, but like top NBA money for one of the smaller markets out there. But I've said, going back to when the new owners come in, like, yeah, hire Bud as next head coach. That makes sense. Interesting, his name wasn't thrown out. You'd think that if he wanted to have his name out there, that he would already.
Right. Yeah. It feels like Frank Vogel, right? Everyone wanted Frank Vogel when he was available last year. Last year, right? And it was like, I don't think it's gonna happen. You're gonna have to give him like a percentage of the team, give him full control of the front office to get him here. And that doesn't seem very likely. But I like what you said about Charles Lee. It has me excited. I can't lie. I'm a fan now.
I'm also excited. I threw out some of the names. Steve Nash, obviously due to his time in Brooklyn. Kenny Atkinson. I've seen multiple interviews where Jeff Peterson has talked about the impact Kenny Atkinson made on him in terms of his basketball journey in the front office, the admiration he has for that guy, his work ethic, his approach, his mind. Whether he would consider, going back and rehashing that 2020, 2022 offseason, I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if there's a conversation there. I mean, we're going to hear a lot here in the next, probably 2-3 weeks as things start to crystallize. But this is a good role, a good opportunity. Some interesting names that have already been thrown out there already. Chris Quinn's Spoelstra's number 2 in Miami. You look at what they've been able to do in recent years with, not the most talent in the world. They've got everything out of that squad that they've been able to do. But it's the officially the end of the Steve Clifford era. And this press conference we get today will probably be the last time we hear from Steve Clifford in like a public sense. He will go behind the scenes now. Hopefully he'll still have a role, but this will be probably the last time. So hopefully you get one more of those monologues and we still get at least, 7-8 more games of him shouting at Nick Richards to set screens. So you might get your wish one last time.
Please.
One thing I want to say about Cliff, how has a coach got a 38 and 112 record and still so popular among the Hornets fan base? Like, I feel like he deserves some credit. In most cases, fans are just ready to basically burn these coaches at the cross and throw them away. And he has managed to garner the respect of the fan base, even in the midst of complete disappointment for 2 years in a row. And that is a hard thing to do. And I want to commend Steve Clifford for his approach and his personality and his communication that I think he's been able to do that.
Yeah, and I think, can I curse here? Is that all right?
Yeah, you go. You go.
I think it's clear that he gives a shit. And it's not always clear that coaches give a shit. And the fact that he's on his feet, sometimes on the court throughout these games, you can always hear him, right? No matter how packed or empty or how many away fans or whatever, you can always hear Steve Clifford. He always very clear this man cares and wants the best out of the five on the floor. So I think for me at least, that's one of the most admirable things about him as a fan, watching him operate. He's not on the bench. He's not quiet. Like, he's active, involved at all times. So whoever comes in next, I hope we see more the continuation of that, because that's very endearing to see that out of your coach, that match, that energy that the fans have, that want, that desire for the team on the floor to succeed.
Absolutely. Right, Sam, we said we'd be 15, 20 minutes. We're coming up to 20 minutes now. Thank you for joining me for this kind of emergency podcast, immediate reaction. We'll have a lot of coverage on allhornets.com, on the All Hornets Podcast Network, on Sam's channel. Make sure you check it all out. We'll have everything here in the next couple of weeks as this coaching search hots up. So Sam, thanks for joining me.
Of course.